what now?
Like
Oh, this thing.
press whatever
Okay,
you
we're
want.
on.
Hi, good morning. Today is October 24th, 2019. It's 10:05. We're beginning our work session. If we could stand for the pledge, please.
I'm gonna play with this the whole time.
Tim, you want to lead us?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And to Catherine.
I'd just like to make two announcements. This weekend, Bid and Diane Tucci are coordinating the Halloween Parade and Coffin Race this Saturday, October 26th, which I think is going to be the nicer days of the weekend, though, so thank goodness on Saturday. The Coffin Races will start at 3 p.m. We have our trick-or-treating, which will go from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. The Costume Parade will begin at 7 p.m. and also Art in the Park will go from dusk until 10 p.m. in Grand Jewel Park. All info can be found at the HalloweenFestRiverhead.com, or you can contact them at 631-209-4244 with any questions. So it's going to be a really fun day downtown, so hopefully everybody will come and join us. Hope you guys will be there for the parade in costume. What do you think?
When is it?
It's on Saturday at 7 p.m.
Okay.
I know you have a few costumes. I've seen you in your Santa costume.
That's true.
Also, the town's bow hunting program has commenced at EPCAL and town-owned property on Sound Avenue and Middle Road. Bow hunting shall run until Sunday, December 22nd. At EPCAL, members of the public are advised to stay on the walking path at all times, including pets. Please do not enter the woods where active deer hunting is taking place. So just a reminder to everybody so that we stay safe and everybody can use the property over there and do it safely.
I want to jump in and thank all of the volunteers that came for the litter pickup.
Yes.
Jim, right?
They literally litter picked up.
Including the supervisor and Councilwoman Giglio.
Yeah, where were you
Um,
guys picking up trash
I
that
was
day?
Doctor's Path.
Okay, where were you, Catherine?
I had to go, I worked here checking people in, and then I had to shoot over to the Alzheimer's thing.
Oh, okay, we picked up like bags and bags of garbage down at Reeves Beach,
The-
or Roanoke Avenue Beach. It was quite a day.
It's amazing how much trash
It's amazing.
accumulates there, so
Yeah.
it's so
And-
important to have those, the
And,
cleanups.
and there are garbage cans there, so there's no reason not to use them instead of just taking a bag and chucking it out the window. There are garbage pails there, so, and it's really difficult to get back into the woods, and there were a lot of beer cans and mostly is what we saw down at the Roanoke Beach, but, you know, Brogan came by, our police officer who was making the rounds that day, and said that he's gonna start patrolling those areas more often. So if you are down there drinking, you shouldn't be, and if you're of age and you can be drinking, then you should be using the trash receptacles.
But,
I don't think
thank
we
you.
have open beer cans at our beaches, though.
and just
No,
know
it's
that,
in the, it's
No
on the
open
road.
containers at our beaches, yeah.
It's on the road in the parking lot, so I don't know that we have a code about that, but maybe Catherine can look into it with code revision.
No, there's no open container, we have no open container law, we only, when we have festivals, we waive it.
but just to go back, we had, I think, 81 volunteers. There were a lot of, the ROTC came, and we had an AP Spanish class came, and there was another, the Scouts.
ROTC?
Yep,
They
they
were
were
down
at
at
Stotsky.
Stotsky Park.
Yeah, they
Um,
got jump
But the
started.
person in charge, the chair, Deborah Wetzel, did a fabulous job, and the environmental committee, kicked in and did a lot of the work, so, it was a great effort on everybody's part.
Yeah, and thank you once again to Deborah, I mean, she did a fantastic
Yeah.
job.
And the best part is,
Relentless.
I said, are you saying you don't wanna do it again next year? And she said, no, I wanna do it next year.
Oh, yeah, no, she's good.
I thought that was impressive.
Very. All right, so we shall move on to, first up is Chief Hagemiller. He is not here yet, so we will move on to the second discussion. Town Board Committee Liaison Updates. Is there anything anybody would like to report on that?
Yeah, the Landmarks Preservation Commission is putting together a document that they would like to submit to the town board on the proposed legislation change for regulatory versus advisory. So you can expect to be seeing something from them as soon as all of the board members can meet again and finalize the document and submit it to the town board.
Is that different than what they submitted at the meeting, or they're updating it?
It's different
Okay,
from
they're
what they
updating what they're
submitted.
submitting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're doing the comparisons between the Architectural Review Board and the Landmarks Preservation Commission, and the fact that the Architectural Review Board is regulatory when it comes to signs, so they need to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals if they want relief from the signs, as per the code. So there were some other mentions in there also, but I'll wait for them to finish their
That's all we need is another level of regulatory, that's all we need.
document.
Government falling all over
Anything
itself.
else?
Just to mention, well, I had Ag Advisory this past week, and the Ag Advisory, is looking at their next meeting on November 12th to meet with Farmland Select, that's your committee, correct?
Mhm.
They are they're both meeting on the same night, so we're looking to bring those two groups together and look at a couple of the common issues. And as far as downtowns.
They used to be together, years ago, did you know
Did
that?
they? No, I
Yes.
didn't know that. So we're, maybe you can help me choreograph that.
Do you know why they were separated?
Just different issues,
Okay.
farmland and open space, just, they didn't really coincide too much, and there was only a certain amount of money, so it was kinda hard to decide where it was going.
Gotcha.
And as far as downtown's concerned, I want to announce again that we have the public forum for people that are interested in weighing in on what they want to see in their downtown. That is for the Pattern Book Company, Urban Design Associates, and that public forum will be on Thursday, November 14th, beginning at 6:30, and I believe it's going to be in the boardroom here. So it's very important that people come and let their voice be heard. A lot of people make comments here and there about downtown, but here is your chance to be part of it.
And will there be surveys for the community to fill out, or if they can't attend that night, how is that working, do you know?
There are going to be surveys, I think there's gonna be a visual survey at some point, but that's not going to be on the same night.
Okay.
Business advisory meeting took place on Tuesday. It was a special meeting, and it was designed primarily to tie up loose ends on the Chapter 255. They're getting close. Not quite there yet, but a lot closer than they were. I did indicate to them.
with it.
I did indicate to them that we are looking to have this done in November, because we're coming up to
Coming
the
to
new
deadline.
year. And they're aware of that, and I think they're gonna be on point with it.
So are they still, I know they had sent a draft application, is it still in draft form?
Still in draft form, because there was some changes they decided they should make at the meeting on Tuesday, so it is still draft form.
Okay. So hopefully we can get that ready for
Mhm.
presentation.
Yes.
Did they, I know they had also looked at the code, would they be making revisions to the code also?
No, there were no revisions actually to the code, but there was some talk about how it affects private individuals on private property differently than a function held on town property. And the application didn't really address both. It was kind of aimed in one way, so they were gonna iron that out and try to make that so it
I heard
was
them talking
more
about that.
usable.
Okay.
I sat in the back and listened.
I've also, met with our staff to review some of the stuff. I had sent some stuff to, the town attorney's office also, because I know that they had brought up about whether we need the Suffolk County Health Department certificates for vendors coming in. So they're checking out, since we don't regulate that when they're there, whether that is actually something that we need to have submitted to us.
Okay.
So they're checking up on
Good.
that also, cause I know that was a big bone of
Right, and then they'll put
contention with their.
together, the committee will put together with
Correct.
our people
And
here,
then we'll meet,
and then
and we'll
we'll
meet to do that.
figure it out for the final draft.
Okay, very good. Anybody else with their committees? Seeing nobody, the chief is here, and we'll have you come up.
That's the chief, hi chief, that's the
Me,
chief,
yeah.
that's the chief of police right there.
Incognito today.
Yeah, what's going on?
Very, interesting.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, that's your incognito out?
This is it.
You look sharp.
Traffic?
Good. Traffic is good. The numbers were way down last weekend, so we didn't even have the third lane in place, the
Okay.
turning lane in place
Oh, I'm
last
sorry,
weekend.
what did you just say? I was talking.
Numbers were way down last weekend.
Yeah, I
So we
was,
didn't have the, turning lane set up by Harbs.
yeah, I went to Harbs last week, last Sunday. and it
Right.
was-
They're out of apples, so.
Oh, all right.
Are they really?
Not, I saw
No.
That's
people
what I hear.
picking
I
the
don't know.
orange
Well,
trees.
they got the bins of apples, you can,
Yeah.
get some.
And
But
they
there
still
was
have
an
the Gourmets
accident.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, there was an accident, I guess, on Sound, cause Sound, a portion of Sound I know was closed
Closed.
Well, a
due
guy
to an
fell out of a
accident.
bus. All right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was very
It
sad.
One of those party
That was-
vans or big vans and, you know,
Tragedy.
fell out the door, yes.
Uh, Because I have you here, I think I just texted you, can you brief the board? We are going through some budget items. There's been several meetings between the district attorney's office, the towns, the chiefs of police. There's an unfunded mandate that's coming down to us that came in after everybody's budgets had been submitted, and the discussion started. It has to do with the new discovery law, which if you do or not, have not heard about it, it's that all cases will require discovery, and it has to be provided within 15 days for most cases, where a majority, I think DA was saying like 90% of the cases are usually pleaded out. That will no longer be, that will no longer reduce the amount of discovery. They will still have to provide all of this discovery with that. There's also, for grand juries, there's no more, everybody who goes to the grand jury will be released. And then there's, on top of that, there is also bail reform, which is being done, that for most, other than really egregious felonies, there will be no bail required, and there will be desk appearance tickets issued, and people will be given dates. If they don't come back for the date, you have to notify them, I think, by email, by text, or by a letter, to show up. So, there's a lot of onus on the police department to be able to fulfill these requirements, where if somebody, the arresting instrument will then have to, when somebody arrests somebody, that information will have to go to a new bureau, which is potentially being created by the DA.
It
They
is.
will have to call in and convey the information to them to, what is it's just for the arresting instrument, is that what?
It's right, it's the complaint or the information has to go over to them, so they'll see if that's sufficient. Any other documentation that we have, statements, arrest
You're talking about
report.
crimes, right?
All
Everything.
that stuff's gotta go
Not
over to them.
infractions, petty offenses.
Yeah, no, we really haven't discussed that as of yet.
What
so-
about DWIs? Are we gonna be able to hold overnight for DWIs
We're
still?
not gonna release until they're sober, for
Right, we
sure,
can still
so-
do that under this, okay.
Well, does this
That's a
bail,
concern.
I understand this bail thing that's not gonna get out of New York, but does that affect station house bail?
Mhm.
Yes.
Everything,
Everything.
everything.
The only way you can really hold someone on bail if it's a violent felony, is what it comes down to.
Even a
Oh,
home
good God.
invasion, what's considered a home
Right.
invasion is released, correct?
Right.
And this all starts
Drug
January
dealers,
1st.
all that's, everyone's released.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what happens with the prisoners in the jail as of January 2nd that are in there on drug charges and things of that nature? I'm being told that those people will be let out on January 2nd and their records will be expunged.
I don't know about expunged, but I would say probably if they haven't met the requirements for discovery, or if they're being held there on bail for some reason, then I would say they'd be released.
This is absolutely ludicrous. I can't believe that
Insanity.
somebody in government put this, I can believe it, actually. It makes no sense at all. It really puts the safety of the residents at risk, letting all these people back out.
Yeah, and I'm concerned about when the people get let out of jail on January 2nd in Riverside, like maybe you and the supervisor can work on how those people are being transported back to where they came
I
from?
think the supervisor has met with the sheriff already.
Yes, we've met with the sheriff, we've met with the county. We feel that there should be some sort of transportation back to the point of origin. It should not be just a general release here. So, we are working on that. We're also working for the sheriff in their budget to be able to have funding, to be able to transport not only just on January 2nd, but going forward with that. But that brings us to the expenses that the unfunded mandate expenses that are gonna be associated with this that are not in this budget, and part of it, you gave me, almost a $350,000 for
Well,
the computer?
That's for the records management system that, we're all going to, hopefully.
Oh, we have to buy that system?
It's the county that is going to niche, the state went to niche, records management, the county's going to niche.
What is that, niche? What-
Niche.
New
That's the
York
name-
State?
No, it's the, name of the company.
Can you spell that?
NICHE, I think.
Okay.
Anyway, who cares about that?
Right, so,
I do, 'cause I wanna
anyway,
know what I'm talking about
we're
when I
not gonna
talk to
see
people.
that records management probably until 2021, cause the state isn't completely on it yet, the county won't be on it.
And there's a fee associated with getting
About
that.
350.
Well, the problem is, it's free, our RMS,
Oh,
however,
boy, here we go.
However, the CAD piece is a piece we have to pay for, so.
Oh, boy, goodness.
That's computer-aided dispatch, so we have a quote on that for about $350 is what they want.
That's
And they want us to sign on by
$350,000.
March 31st or something, I think was the date.
Of this year,
Of
of 20,
next-
2020,
Next year, right,
2020.
right.
So that's an expense that, just so you
That's
are
one-
aware, is pending, that was not in this budget because.
And that's just for records management.
Yeah.
That's just for the computer program.
Not for the warrant squads.
This, right, discovery and stuff like that, it's very hard to put a figure on it, because no one really knows how much it's gonna take.
Right.
But we have to have within 15 days, I mean, the part that I see being the problem is any kind of video that we have, any kind of 911 tape we have, any kind of.
Text
thing.
messages.
All that stuff has gotta go to the DA's office. So, I mean, it's a big lift now to do that
You
stuff.
realize the warrants are
Now
gonna
we're gonna do
triple.
that on everyone.
And we only have the ability to go out one county, so you
Well,
have
it
somebody, you give them a
depends on-
desk appearance
that
ticket, and they
depends on
don't
the-
live within Suffolk or Nassau County, we're relying
depends
on
on the
other
crime.
other police departments to then return, be able to
Depends
assist
on the warrant
them.
though,
To
Laura,
hold them
just,
in.
just. to be
No,
clear.
I understand that, but then that's also a lot of petty crimes that will
Well, petty crime, yeah.
will not then be able to be prosecuted, which is a big issue.
And the clowns that put this together have been asked to at least postpone it for a
Yes.
year,
They-
and they refuse to do
It'd
that.
be nice to have some time to get
A
up to
delay.
speed, because, supervisor went with myself to a meeting for East End chiefs and supervisors and mayors, and the DA spoke at that meeting. So out of that meeting, we started a pilot project with the DA's office.
Well,
So that actually started
Just find out who
yesterday,
sponsored
or
the
they
bill and
came
give
to
them
meet
their
with us
address, that's all.
yesterday as far as
and they'll sit at his
what they're
house.
gonna do. So there, the county, I think, is doing one precinct, and Riverhead's the other precinct, and we'll be submitting, like it's.
Like as if
real
it-
time,
if it's already
January
enacted.
1st, right, but it's only gonna be for a certain tour. So whenever they pick out that tour,
Mhm.
if you make an arrest on the day tour, let's say it is, that's when we'll have to, get in touch with. I call it ECAB at this point, I don't know what they're actually gonna call it.
So you made up the name for them?
No, they did, actually, I'm stealing it, so, they have cab already,
Okay,
so now this is,
so it's a whole nother layer.
everything's gonna have to be submitted electronically to them, so we'll scan in the paperwork, send it over to them, and then there'll be
Well, that's not a big.
they'll see whether it's sufficient or not. If it's sufficient, then you can proceed to court with your paperwork.
But you're still gonna be on the phone when you make you still are on the phone, you could have a delay on the phone for an hour, hour and a half when you arrest somebody to call
Right,
in
so-
and speak to this new bureau, before you get your instrument, your
Yeah,
arresting instrument done.
It's not gonna be immediate, because who knows what they're working on in the county. You know, the county does more arrests.
Well, you would
than
think
we
that
do.
this,
High
that seems to
volume
be
of
the
calls.
expenses.
We
You're
were unable
right,
to.
You're number 12 in the
Right.
queue, so, we'll see how that works. But hopefully that'll give us some kind of idea on how much maybe in overtime or something it's gonna cause, for officers to stay until the paperwork's
Which, of
done.
course, the state is gonna reimburse us,
Yeah,
right?
not
Yeah.
gonna happen.
Mhm.
So this is an incredibly big unknown.
Big, right.
That is gonna
Undertaking.
have
It's-
huge impacts. I mean, there is nobody in government that on Long Island, that is for this. I mean, we have
Nobody.
all of the Suffolk County supervisors,
Well,
the
let's
East
face
End
it,
Mayor's
just-
Township
Right.
supervisors, the police department.
New York
We've asked
State.
our justice court to write a letter also to the state. This is definitely being fueled by New York City.
I
And
can
they're-
appreciate the work, the paperwork, and the coordination with the ECAB, whatever you wanna call it, that I can appreciate, but that seems counterproductive to the fact that you can't set bail, and you can't even incarcerate, I mean, so why the hell, I don't,
It's,
move out of New York, that's all I can
there
do.
are a lot of legislators on Long Island that voted for the budget up in Albany. And the budget included the bail reform, but it did not include any funding for these programs. So what if we just don't have the money for the programs? Because we don't wanna bust the cap and we don't wanna budget for it. What happens then?
Everyone walks. Then everyone walks. Everybody we arrest walks.
If we don't
So-
comply with discovery, then you would, right, the case would just
Be
be
dismissed,
disposed.
yeah.
Be insufficient.
It's incredible.
So,
It's
I thi- I think-
a complete change to
Right.
the system that we have right now, and the repercussions of it, I don't think were well thought out at all. All the way down the line, and the expense of this, and the benefit. I'm not really understanding the benefit of any of this
It's to
either.
free open the jails and cut back on the corrections officers and cut back on,
Well, it's the cost of corrections. in the
Yeah.
state. I mean, there are, and now,
Absolutely.
on the flip side, there are probably people doing some time that, for petty offenses, just because they can't afford bail, that are stuck there, that may be a little bit heavy-handed.
But then
They
let the
shouldn't have
state,
done the
let the
petty
state,
offense.
let the state post their bail.
Simple.
Right now, the state will only post up to, I think, $2,000 bail if you're, if you can't afford it. They should raise their limit to be able to cover whatever it is for somebody who can't post bail, instead of doing this,
Oh, I
what they're
agree.
doing
I can
now.
think of
I think
1,000
this is,
different ways
Seems like a
it
simpler answer.
seems like a really roundabout solution to correct a problem that should have been simpler to correct.
yeah, or at least raise the bail to what the cost is per person to bring them through discovery and everything else, so at least they're paying for that expense and it gets reimbursed to the
Well, bail isn't-
municipalities.
Bail is just a guarantee to come back to court. Bail,
Correct.
you don't keep bail. Bail
No,
goes back.
well,
Oh,
then they
we
should
do
change
keep
the name of it.
About
Yeah,
$30,000
right.
worth of bail a year that's forfeited.
Oh, I know, we get almost a $500,000 a year.
Which we will not be getting also.
Correct.
So it's not only
Yeah,
an
we
added
got
expense, it's a
right.
reduce in our revenue.
You got 450,000 anticipated for next year that might not be coming
You
in.
can talk to them about that one. All right, so I just
So-
wanted to
so I
inform the
think the-
board that this is something coming down the pike. As I said, everybody is being very vocal about delaying this. We did speak to a rep from the governor's office yesterday. They do not know whether this is gonna have, because this starts January 1st. I don't think they go back into session until after January 1st.
Yeah.
So whether this is, this looks like it's gonna be on the books starting January 1st, which is, as I said, is going to be really cumbersome to, especially the towns on the east end, and it's gonna be an issue.
Yep, we're proceeding full steam ahead, so.
Yeah, and
Happy
corrections and
January.
law enforcement have been in Albany fighting this before the budget came out, and their
Oh,
voices
you
were,
use everybody.
I'm saying something, Jim. Their voices were unheard.
Saying something.
So, it's terrible what they're doing, and this expense to the taxpayers of Riverhead, when we have a jail in Southampton, just over the river, that these people can just get out of jail, and without any transportation being negotiated or anything, it's gonna, all of our efforts for downtown are gonna be, it's gonna be terrible. Thank God we have the second sector downtown, to where they can go and write the tickets and at least, but if the records are expunged, then you don't even know.
Well,
And
there's
that's
no
what I'm-
record yet because they
I
just
don't
have a
know about
desk
expunged.
appearance.
No, if they're let out of
Oh, they're
jail
let
and
out.
they're downtown and they're walking around in the parking lots behind diggers, asking people for money so that they can get drugs or get a bus, which happens now, it's happened to
Well,
me.
hopefully that'll work out where they're transported
Right,
back.
and then-
Yeah, I think that,
That's
we'll
uncommon
continue to
or whatever.
advocate for that,
We've been
and
talking
I
about
think
That would be huge.
our county legislators are on board with us, the sheriff's department is on board with us. As I said, testified in both of their budgets, at the county level to make sure that it's funded, to be able to do that, because I think it's an overtaxing burden on the town of Riverhead that, we should not be straddled with.
Everybody, right?
But I think we gotta be careful of the word expunged. I don't think I think you're using the wrong term.
No, that's what's happening to the drug offenders. When they're getting out of jail,
Their entire record is expunged?
yes,
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that either.
that's what's being discussed, and that's what corrections is telling me. And
We'd have
that's
to
what
check with
Suffolk
the
County
DA on
is
that.
telling me.
Should
So the biggest budget item I see right now, besides the CAD, the 350, is someone to help us with this, data that's gotta go over. So whether that's a
Ooh.
part-time person
Sounds like it.
or a Monday through
January?
Friday person that can
Sounds like your new
gather the
Civilian.
information.
Hey, I got-
Civilian, I would
Civilian.
say.
Hey, I know somebody retired police that would probably do that.
Civilian, yeah.
Part-time job, for sure.
There you go.
I thought
It changes.
Yeah.
It changes by the minute.
Back to traffic, one last thing is hopefully it's gone,
okay,
but we will be monitoring it this
okay,
weekend.
so you'll adjust the
Yep.
staff accordingly?
Yep.
Okay,
Back to
thank you.
traffic, good job, because it did make a difference.
lot of-
Even
a
on the
lot of
worst of the
people-
weekends,
Right.
it made a difference. That third lane was a great move, and the timing of the lights, making them longer east and westbound, certainly helped keep traffic moving a little bit. It
A lot of
wasn't perfect, but
compliments we got.
it's
Yeah.
much better than what it was.
Yep.
Sunday I
And
was there.
those came out of your task force that you guys put together? Good job.
And that training from 138,
That's it.
or
I-
1298,
They're doing
I'm
the
sorry.
job.
I think everybody working together
Together,
to
that's it.
solve
Yeah,
the
the
problem,
That's
imagine
it.
that.
TCO Sundays, they should
That should be a headline, Denise.
Oh, they.
Everybody working together.
Thank you, and then, like I said, we'll meet again as a traffic task force to debrief, right after the, you know, everybody calms down a little bit, and let's start planning already for next year.
Good.
Good.
Good job.
Okay, so we will now move on, let's do the proposed, Zagster bike share locations. Zagster bike share
Oh, I see
locations.
that, yeah.
Yeah, so the Alternative Transportation Committee, Karen Gluth came in and told them about it. It was the first time that they had heard about it. I guess they didn't read the stories in the local paper, but they were looking at a map that was sent over to Karen by someone in the county that she was directed to communicate directly with the county. And the Alternative Transportation Committee was asking for more input in the locations of the crosswalks and the bike routes and where the bike, you know,
I think this is a very different conversation. That's the Zagster, we're talking about the Zagster bike share, which is just the location of the kiosk that will hold the bike. I think what you're talking about, there's two different things. There's an Empire State Trail, that is supposed to go from, I think, like Albany all the way out to Montauk and the East End, that the towns have not been, and have sent letters up to the bike trail. They have not communicated with the towns. They put out a preliminary path for all of this. Legislator Al Krupski is working with them because they did not contact the town of Southold, the town of Riverhead, or have any conversation with us about that. So that, we don't know what's going on with that, and they have not come back to us with that at all. So I'm not sure
okay,
what
because
that is.
Jefferson Murphy told Karen 3 weeks ago, this is the people that you're supposed to reach out to, and you're supposed to communicate with them for these trails for downtown. So she brought it to the Alternative Transportation Committee on Friday and said, I was told that I was to bring this to you today by Jeff Murphy. I don't know who told Jeff because he was on vacation and I didn't get in touch with him, but that, you know, this is
If you
basically.
could just provide me with the information, I'm gonna see if I can sort it out, because it sounds like a lot of things are just kind of, two projects are getting crossed together. So let's just clarify what it is, who's asking for what. I know that the Empire, I think it's Empire State Trails, or whatever. I know that one of their outreaches were to, bike clubs
I
and
think
to different things, so maybe that's it. I don't know, let's
I
clarify
think
it.
this was the $400,000 that we got from the county for,
The county, that is Jumpstart money. It comes to the town, and then the town, designs and puts the project forward with that. So that's why I don't necessarily think it's the same project, but let's
Yeah, 'cause
clarify.
Oh,
Karen's
the jump start we
communication.
just got for Griffin
Yes.
Avenue?
So
Yes.
Karen's communication was from the county, and then she was given an aerial saying that this is where the trails are, this is where the money is gonna be spent, and this is where the crosswalks are, so the Alternative Transportation Committee was a little taken back that it was not brought to them initially.
That's what I'm saying, let's get clarification, because it sounds confusing. So this is, the proposed Riverhead bike share locations. This is tentative, so we just have, what we have is 6 potential, location, they're just proposed ideas. The reason that we're sharing it now is just so that the committees can, the liaisons can bring it back to their committees, to share it with them, whether it's traffic safety, whether it's alternative transportation, whether it's business, the downtown advisory, to bring it to everybody's committee so that we can get feedback to be brought back to the town board on potential locations. So, John, you have a PowerPoint of where the potential locations may be? I think we have 6 locations, 6 different locations. So they're proposing, I'll go through, you can see Long Island Railroad, Polish Town, Grangeville Park, I can't see that, or North Parking Lot, East End Arts Council, Riverhead Town Hall, and Veterans Memorial Park, over there. So this is, we'll give you the rough sketches of what they are, and then, like I said, if you guys could take this, you can take the PowerPoint back to your committees, run it by them, see what their thoughts are, and then bring it back to us. Like, even this one for the Riverhead Railroad Station, that spot, we're putting diagonal head-in parking there, so that spot may not work, because we need to switch spots with the MTA and the Long Island Railroad to move the bus stops to the other side, so that needs to go into, that discussion with them. We'll have one over there somewhere, but that one may be, an issue also. This is over in Polish Town in the town-owned parking lot, just, north,
Near the school?
yeah, Yeah, but it's closer to, it's Hamilton Avenue there, right?
Yeah.
Closer to Hamilton Avenue there.
I don't know if that's a good area.
Who
Well,
picked
that's
these
a question.
locations?
These are just sketch locations. I think when when they were looking for the Zaxter bikes, they went out to different areas in the town, and they came back as rough ideas. As I said, all of these can be scrapped, they can all be moved somewhere else. This is just a starting point for everybody to have their input.
Okay, so can this get emailed to the town
Yeah, of
board
course.
members so we can bring it back to
Yep.
our committees?
Yep,
Thank
that's,
you.
so this is Polish Town. I know there was some concern over here whether this was the ideal spot. I think having one in Polish Town would be good. We just need to find a town location where it could be located if it is not there.
Well, Railroad Avenue is Polish Town.
Well, I think more into the town over there, but, you know, I don't know what their theory is, when they put these bikes out, if they like a distance so people can go from one to the other, drop off bikes and then walk.
Just
I'm not
thinking
really
of-
sure.
I'm just thinking in my mind where people would get dropped off or congregate and probably wanna use a bicycle, and I don't see a lot of people
Yeah,
dumped off on Hamilton Avenue.
I would think
I'd
by,
stick one up to Tanger if anything.
by the railroad and then up to the courts if people, well,
Well, let's go through all of them, and then the next one is the north side of the Main Street, the parking lot and the back parking lot there. The next is over at East End Arts Council to get to the other parking lot there. And one would be Riverhead Town Hall.
We're all gonna be riding those.
I think it's great at Town Hall to be able to go all around, because you can take the bike here and go where you want. You don't necessarily, I believe part of the ride share is you don't have to put them back in a kiosk or holder. You can drop them off at other bike, locations, and then they will be picked up and returned to the charging station.
Last but not least.
Charging station?
What are the kiosks, whatever, I don't know if they're electrical or not, the
Electric,
docking
hell, I might
station.
ride if it's electric.
The docking station. And then also at Vets Memorial Park, you know, I personally think that this is gonna be a highly used,
Yes.
docking station.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, we'll ask them to put more bikes here, or 2 docking stations. It may be one of those things that they do this preliminary, and then when I'm sure as they go through their business model, which ones are getting the most use, they'll switch around to that. But, I think, you know, one of the impediments sometimes to using the trail is, you know, to load up the bike for the families and get out there and go for the ride. So I think that this'll be a great asset over there.
And that's really it, so I can send this to all of you.
People are gonna love the one at Memorial Park.
Yeah.
I do think, I agree, we need more bikes there.
Are they 10 speed or something?
No, they're user
my
friendly.
God.
yeah, the city bikes.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I
Single
was just
speed.
in Boulder and they had them everywhere.
9 miles.
Very cool.
Feel my legs. I hope feel my legs.
The other thing a lot of places have are those birds, the scooters you just stand on, the electric scooters, and you just take them around and drop them off and over. Those are very cool too. Be nice to have the scooters and zip cars. All right, so the next item, any questions from anybody on that? We'll get all that out to everybody.
All right, thank you very much, have a good day, bye.
All right, the next item on here is the 2020 budget, town board discussion. I know, Tim, that you had asked this to be on the schedule. So, just a couple things, I know you guys have read my budget letter. A couple of the items that I had in budget was increased officer for code enforcement. B&G, we know last year had been asking, and a lot of the board members had been asking for extra staff in B&G. And we had told them that to do it all in one budget year was a bit of a heavy lift for the town, so we incorporated it, the second person in this year. Tax receiver's office, we've been filling that position with part-time and temporary. We had somebody in that office, and we had actually, I think, another full-time person and a part-time person there. We had taken that out and just put one part-time, so they're asking to replace that with just one additional full-time person. Accounting and personnel, we had some shifts in position with that. We had a retirement. One of our employees took advantage of the early retirement incentive, who had been doing both personnel and accounting. So I met with both departments to see how to actually divvy up the jobs so that they were in the department that they were. So this adds I don't know the exact title, but another person in personnel who would be underneath our current personnel, underneath Meg. And then it would be in accounting, there would be one more, I believe it's an account clerk typist, with some additional duties for some of the other staff in that office.
Right.
So
So-
who would end up administering like the drug testing and like what Jean did?
That would all be done through personnel.
Through
So the new
personnel,
person in
okay.
personnel, so we split up the duties, so that they were really in the appropriate places
Okay.
that they
Good,
should be
yeah,
in.
'cause Jean was half and half.
Yeah.
Her job, she was here for quite a long time, so
I
her
know,
job
she was
morphed
half-
over the years
half
into,
accounting, half personnel.
into sort of this catch-all.
Which was a good place to be.
Right, but you can't hire a catch-all, you know, unless, I mean, a lot of her expertise came from years of doing it.
Right.
So we felt that it was better. And then also just logistically, because, personnel,
So you're hiring,
well, no, I'm hiring one person under Meg in personnel, right? Who would do the personnel stuff that Jean was doing, and then the accounting would assume, because she did some payroll, and she also did some other things with the accounting department.
So we're gonna-
She was a single audit, for some of the things, so we're hiring an account clerk typist there, and then there'll be additional.
promoting somebody or.
Right, adding additional duties to somebody else in the office to cover what it was that she was doing there.
So, in the vacant human resources, which is the budget for 2019 was
What page,
45,597.
where are you and what are you talking about?
I'm just asking a general question. So you're saying that you're
Well, it
going to
helps if
put somebody.
We can all look at the budget.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is information that I requested from Bill, so you can ask him for it, so that you
So
can
Bill,
look at it.
why don't you come up here for this
Yeah, can Bill come
then?
to the table for the budget discussion?
So, under Meg Ferris, I see in here you have, right now, there's a vacant position of 45,597, was the 2019 salary, it's vacant for 2020, and the salary is jumping up to $62,000 from 45,597, so, and that's vacant as of
Right,
right
that
now.
would be the position that we will fill. Jean left in August. We were having, we sent to, civil service to get the job description, because it's a job description that was not, currently, here, and we had to find the correct title. So that has been sitting over in civil service to get a response from them to approve that job title. That job title, I believe, John, was that approved, the job title coming back?
Yeah, personnel.
All right, so the personnel assistant job title came back, and then I think we have to do 5 days within the town to put that out to employees, and then move forward with interviewing for that. So it's, the vacant position is that position to be filled.
Okay, so, and the
Jean's.
starting salary for that is 62,000?
That is what the rate is for that position, correct? Because Jean was making much more than that,
I know,
and so
but
it's a
this-
split of duties.
But this is a new position, personnel assistant, yes?
No.
Under civil service, why are you asking?
No,
Okay.
no, the position was, Jean held the position,
Mhm.
right, and she was part personnel and part accounting. She had an array of duties that she did.
What was her actual title?
She was like an accountant, she was like
It's
a,
like a, Bill can probably
Jean
answer
was
that.
a principal account clerk type of,
Okay.
Right.
principal account clerk, I'm sorry.
Like
right,
freedom.
so it didn't really encompass the duties that she was, so it was, that was what was split up to be actually what the person is doing.
So 62,000 is the base salary for a personnel assistant, and there is a list
Not-
for that.
It's a personnel assistant, is that what the title was, that?
That's what you
Yes.
just said, and I wrote down.
Okay,
So,
so yes, that is the starting salary for that job title.
okay, so I just want to make,
That's a
verify that.
competitive
I'll ask
position
Meg.
for a test?
Yes.
Is there a current list, do you know?
I don't know what the list is for that one,
There is a current list.
yeah,
I don't know if we wanna get too much more into this, if we're talking about personnel staffing on camera back and forth, because there were some conversations I had to have with the union about it as well, so.
We're not talking about a particular person, we're talking about a budget item.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but there is a current list, 62,000 was the base salary. Meg went out for it, and I think we're looking to interview people soon, so personnel can be made, I think, aware shortly.
Okay,
Thank you, John.
and then, just, I guess I'll talk to Bill about why a couple of our code enforcement or our police salaries have dropped from last year's salary to this year's salary.
What we had quite a few police officers, after the contract, was signed that have retired, and we've replaced, officers as new officers. I think, we've discussed that, I don't know how many total new officers, I
these
think we
people
had
haven't retired.
five the other,
Yeah, we currently have 5
Tim,
vacant
these people
going into
retiring, are they?
2020.
Who?
So I don't know if we
No.
have 3 going into
Or-
19, but we have 5 going into 20.
No.
So obviously the top end retired officers that
So
have
look.
retired are being replaced by, entry-level officers, and that's what it says.
2019? 2020.
The 2019 salary, does the 2019 salary on this include overtime?
Not on
No,
the base.
No.
that's what was
separate line
budgeted.
for-
Okay.
So, that's all, I had a couple questions about
Okay.
a couple of people where their salaries are lower.
sometimes it's if they come off of shift. Does it include their differential?
No, that's a separate line.
Separate line,
So the
okay.
numbers you're looking at are the base. So the 6-year police officer makes a lot more than the first-year police officer. So we replaced some in 19, which reduced it, and then we replaced even more in 20. And that replacement, because all the retirees, has actually reduced the base salary.
But there's
in
no police officer salary going down.
There's not
there
a
is.
police officer, it
See
is
it?
the replacement of a police officer.
No, this is actual police officers that Tim is telling me they are not retiring, they are still there, and their salaries have dropped by 4,000 in one case, and,
Both of them have changed positions.
not last year, though,
Yeah,
one of them did.
The big,
Both of them,
I
'cause-
don't, I'd have
I
to-
think if we're talking about individual,
Yeah.
let's save that for
Okay.
offline.
There is no,
I think,
no,
Jody, what
base salary is base
What you may
salary.
be looking at is we have the current police officer in there, and they were hired newly in 19, so therefore, they're replacing whoever it was, and if you
No.
look, okay. We can look at it, I
Yes.
don't know which.
Yeah. Okay. And then, I know that, several of the department heads had requested increases in their departments for their employees because they've taken on additional work. And I know in this one department, it's been a request, year after year, and I see that it's not happening,
So what are you requesting? I mean, this is a
Um,
budget discussion, so I put my preliminary out, if you'd like to make changes, what are you looking to do?
It's a person in the Community Development Agency office. And year after year, they've come in and asked for an increase for this person. And I think if they did a desk audit on this position, that we would probably be forced to pay them a lot more. And I think that we should look to do a little bit more for that, especially because off of all the lists of the people that had retired in 2019, and the 2019 savings equates to $517,837.
This year's 20,000.
And in looking at the future payouts for, or rehiring of these people that have already retired as of 2019, that they will not be coming in at those higher salaries, and in some cases, they are budgeted at the higher salaries. So I don't know where
So,
the appropriate location is to talk about this,
Well,
but
it would be here, but what you would be requesting is in the budget line for the personnel services in that department, you would be asking for an increase, and you have to give me the dollar amount.
yeah, I think she
So-
was asking for 5,000.
So you're asking for a $5,000 increase in the community development line personnel services?
Yes, and then like I said, the salaries for the people that have retired based on their new salaries that they're going to be coming in at, and I can send this over to everybody.
So, let me
They're
just,
budgeted,
so,
there
I-
are several, there's $1,358,553 budgeted for positions that have not been filled. And in some of these incidences, I don't see that we're hiring, people back at
If
the
you-
same
if-
salaries as the people that retired.
we have not cut anybody, position-wise. So the vacancies tend to be, because we just did the CSEA contract, so, we did have retirements in the CSEA contracts, which we will replace people with.
Right, but in one instance, for example, the senior citizen director, I don't think that we're gonna be starting somebody out at $109,235,
That is,
which is
that
what
is,
is budgeted
that is,
for.
that is the, I believe, the starting salary for that position.
Oh, I see, yes.
And I
Okay,
believe that
I'll
was
check on that.
that was the salary. Do you wanna reduce that budget line?
Yes,
Is that what- so
I'm
you would-
saying that we should
okay, so-
transfer it over
Okay, so
to
you would like to reduce what budget line?
the senior citizen director
So you wanna reduce the senior citizen director
by 5,000,
by 5,000.
to compensate the person that has been working in the CDA office without any.
Well, I
increase.
mean, I don't think, it doesn't actually work line by that, but, okay, so you wanna do 5,000 increase in the CDA, and you wanna reduce the senior citizens director by 5,000?
Yep.
The personnel line?
Right.
Okay.
And then, I don't know if that's.
Who we taking money away from?
Senior citizens director, and she wants to give it into the CDA department, is what the,
Does
To
the
give
director
a-
know that?
hmm?
Does the director know that?
We don't have one, we haven't
It's
hired
vacant.
him yet. Judy retired, we haven't replaced her yet.
Oh, I
We
thought
have a
they-
temporary director in there at this time.
Right,
have
but
such
she's
a-
making
they-
a lot less than that.
They have such an active program over there at the senior center, though.
Well, if,
And that's
if
why we
she's-
have two directors.
Well, if the one acting director is making less, then it probably is sufficient.
Right,
Well,
don't know.
no, I mean, we looked at, we can have Maggie come in here, John, could you just, the starting salary for that title, maybe just check with the, usually what we do is check with the other surrounding towns, what it is, to have a comparable salary. But go ahead, what else would you like, are you concerned about?
okay, and then.
I- is it-
I know that the engineering department, and this is for this year's budget, but we have a person that's been out on leave because, on workers' comp, and they're coming back, and it's gonna take them some time to get caught up, and we have somebody very competent there that engineering wants to keep through the end of the year, so, but that's this year's budget, 2019's budget, so there is in engineering, there is $161,956 left in street lighting. And they believe that they'll have an overage of $38,252 at the end of the year. And they're asking for $7,700, a budget transfer to
I think this is an
cover-
executive session
Okay,
conversation.
okay,
Yeah, we've had that discussion
Yeah.
via email the last couple of days.
okay.
Just to jump in on the, whether the different departments and the
I just-
staffing, you want me to finish with
Did you have any other comments about the budget?
Well, we did discuss, Tim and I had a meeting with the ambulance corps the other day, and there are some changes to that budget, but I think, Tim, you're gonna discuss that, right, because you're liaison?
I met with them too.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm done, I just wanted to make sure that
So your
the department had requests for increase to their staffing for people that I think have gone above and beyond, and, seeing what they do as far as administering the grants for the recreation trail and all the grants that we have throughout the town. I think they're doing an excellent job, and if we could get, some compensation for that one person, I think if we had a desk
You're
audit.
just still talking about the CDA?
Yep, so
Okay.
that's all.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. First of all, I'm glad that we're discussing this at work session.
Oh, my.
And, I hope that, I don't think we can get it done in one session. I was gonna ask John if we could put it on for next time too, if it fits in the, I have a lot of questions. I have clarification on some revenue items. I'm working my way through revenue and just got into expenditures. But since you brought up, staffing, I think that we need another staff person in planning. I mean, from what I see of other towns, we're well below what other towns have, and the amount of work that's coming in there, and it's such an important, department. I see that, even Southold has 4 planners and then 2 clerks that work in planning. Southampton has the same, waiting to get the numbers from Brookhaven, but we only have 3 planners and 1 administrative assistant here. I think that the planning department needs another employee.
Yeah, I think that the building department needs another employee, someone to review plans so that those applications don't get backed up. But, we've added quite a bit of staffing to planning over the years and, replaced people, and we do have excellent people. I agree with you, Catherine, we do need more help in planning, but I think that the building department and the capability of reviewing the plans in order to expedite those permits so that we can determine what the permit figure is, so that we're not short in our revenue in the building department, which we are in actual to date. that we can process those permits and get those permits issued, so I think that,
Well, I
lands
think the building,
examiner or something.
yeah, I think the building department, could use another person too. I mean, we don't even have someone with the title long-range planner in Riverhead.
So will you guys figure out what it is that you're, I mean, this is, I have my budget out, so you guys have to come back with a
Right.
comprehensive
Yeah, I
proposal with
understand
all
that.
of your ideas
Yep.
and do it so you guys,
So Catherine, maybe we can work on that together and try and find, revenue in the budget, and also, you know, some of the salaries, looking at some of the salaries for the people that retired and the people that will be hiring in, at what their base salary is, to see if we can come up with some salary numbers for those positions. And I know Tim had mentioned that he was interested in getting more code enforcement, but I think that you have those budget transfers already worked out, right,
Yeah,
for the final budget?
discuss them when we're ready
Yeah,
to.
go ahead.
Well, and
I'm
actually,
done.
yeah, and actually, you know, when we have people in these other departments that are doing inspections as well, so that actually helps with the code enforcement. So I think that's tied together. I just need clarification on a few items, just because I'm working my way through all the line by line. On the revenue, I worked off of the actual one that you gave us. So I'm on the first page, on sales tax bill, the number, does the number, 1,715,355 stay the same year to year?
Yes, there's a max, so we have more than that in expenses that we applied for, but our current had gone up for a couple of years, but we were told last year that in
I'm
19
being
it was
told
gonna-
now that it will remain, it's not gonna go up, but it will remain stable. It would've been nice if it went up, but the county legislators yesterday say they anticipate it remaining stable.
Yeah, I think 19 was the last year they anticipated going up, and now whatever 19 was, I think we're capped at.
Well, that's
Their
why I was
year.
wondering if it's capped out.
I believe at the number we had for 19, we're keeping that at 20, I think that's the cap.
And I think that just goes to the point, I think that's a misconception from a lot of people that, you know, well, we have all the stores on 58, we have all of this stuff going on, they get sales tax, that it benefits the town, which should be making, you know, hand over fist with the sales tax. We don't get sales tax, the town doesn't get sales tax. It goes to the state and the county. We do get this 1.7 million, I think is the projected we have for this year, but the town itself does not get sales tax from the businesses that we have here. The only thing that we collect is the property tax.
We have asked for more because.
have,
because
constantly asked for
They certainly take
more.
a hell of a lot more than 1.7, but.
I totally agree that we should be getting more.
But they just say, that's okay, thank you, no.
On the civil penalties line, so the actual was $25,046. 2019, our first 6 months was 6,000, you could see it. Why the confidence to budget for 100,000 there?
Because if we look at historically what it's brought in, if we look over the last 3 years, we were probably around that we budgeted the last year, so we kept it in there again. And that ebbs and flows, so there's not the same cases, it's not like you have, the same, tax people that you're collecting it from, there's different cases every year. So to project that is similar when you're looking at planning, what new plans are coming in, you kinda have to see what your history was in order to do that. So, whether we have a backlog, we don't get 15 or 20 different penalties that come in. Usually it's a couple that come in different dollar amounts. So we may or may not hit it, and then again, the next year's the same thing, maybe under this year and over next year. It's just, we're going historically based on what happened in the last 3 years or so.
Okay, just to skip down to reimbursement for public safety,
What page are you on?
I'm still on page 1 of the
Okay.
actuals. Is that coming in under another title, because
No, that's-
0 is budgeted
Nope,
here?
that's really the, during the Christmas holiday season, when we get
She's on
reimbursed for services they do over at Tanger, so we just haven't received any of these.
And that'll be the same for this,
Do you see that?
for this fall season with the, police. Over at, at like Harps and things like that.
So, on page 2, parking permits, non-senior residents, boat ramp, are those, what is the actual for this, why is the actual for
Catherine, what page are you on?
I'm in this book.
Page 2.
On the revenues, it's the second half.
Page two
Now
of
I'm in
80.
page 2 out of 6. There's like out of
It's the
6
second half.
in revenues, and
Oh,
then
you're
there's
back in revenue?
expenditure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said I started in revenues.
Gotcha,
Oh,
gotcha,
oh,
gotcha.
oh.
Oh.
Work is,
Okay.
got
Yeah, yeah.
into expenditures. Okay. So just on the non-resident parking fee, Bill, what was your answer? I'm sorry.
So this is, through June 30th, and depending on what was sent over by Recreation as of that date, that's the number. They may
Okay.
have collected stuff in June that we didn't get till July.
Mhm.
By the end of the summer, we should have had most of those, but this was only as.
And
we
that's
do-
definitely seasonal, so,
Yeah.
you know, most
Well,
people are
that's
buying
what-
them during the season, they buy their beach passes and their, you know, stuff during the season.
Yeah, like the non-senior residents, the actual was low, but I'm guessing that this and the boat ramp, that's also because they're seasonal?
all similar, yep, if they're coming in seasonal, we just may not have
Okay.
recorded all those by June 30th,
All right, just down to subdivision fees.
still on the same page, right?
Why are they zero? Are they in planning?
Mm-hmm.
Are they in
Yes.
another line?
Well, it's
Yeah, I don't, well, we're not budgeting
it's
for that.
282.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure what the fee is that we receive for those, I don't know if there's an application for a subdivision, but we get so little of it, we don't budget for it.
Well, we
so
took
whatever money we
$300
get
in last year.
Yeah, well, that was what was received so far this year,
Right.
so.
That's right.
Mhm.
I probably wouldn't
Right,
anticipate that.
on the, I think I'm still on the same page. Rental income wireless,
Yes, okay.
yeah, the actual was 54, already took in 27, but budgeted, 154,000.
So there's $100,000.
And then 54,000.
So when we sign on a new, wireless carrier, there's $100,000, upfront fee, and then there's $54,000 a year. We had anticipated on adding one based on where we were last year in September. That didn't come to fruition yet, I don't know where it stands. So if we get that additional tower before the end of the year, we'll collect 100. If not, we just have the one tower that we have in the general.
Okay, just because I was thinking, is this a typo?
Yeah, so we didn't budget for that next year,
Okay.
because if we don't close it for this
Right.
year and we're short, next year we'll be over.
Okay. Down to the expanded in-home services for the elderly line.
Are we on the third page or still the second one?
I'm on the third page.
Okay.
I actually typed it in, so I knew where it was. So we used to get 126,891, and now we're expecting 6,000. Is this being made up somewhere else?
So what happens here is we get all the money from the county,
Mhm.
but it's not all county money. So we budgeted for the 235,000 because it's flow through from the state and federal government. So some of it's county, some of it's state, some of it's federal. For budgeting purposes, we put 235 in one and 6 in the other, but we have to allocate it for our single audit when we actually do the books. So when you see the actuals, the numbers are different than what we budgeted for, but the total three for state, federal, and county, which is local, are gonna equal the 235 or so. It's just a little convoluted because we have to report it differently than we're budgeting for it. It's just three numbers that we would budget, and we don't know which one's gonna be higher or lower. So I can tell you the other accounts that make up that 235 when we have the actuals after the single audit is done.
Is that the SNAP program you're talking about?
Yeah, it just comes from different governments, and
Right.
we're required to report which government they come from.
And I think that when we switched over to Edmunds, there was two separate lines previously, and it was recorded a little bit differently, so it's now combined to be easier in the one line instead of having the three or four, because it was several lines prior.
Ooh, it's cold in here. Sorry.
So, down on the same page on the SNAP program, we took in 114,047 in 2018, but we budgeted zero for both years. Are we getting assistance on this?
Yeah, and that's the thing, we budgeted zero, but that's the part that I'm trying to look for.
I think that's the one line that was moved up into the other SNAP program, so that 235 in the following year is encompassing that 114 that was recorded in that line prior to Edmunds in 218.
Right, so both lines say SNAP program, one is what ultimately came in from the federal government versus the state and versus the county, that's why it's broken out that way. So if you add those up, the total of those are gonna equal the 235 or somewhere around there.
Okay.
It's just broken out between different revenues for reporting
So
purposes.
this one has been added on to.
And then on
It's a
the first
combination.
page of expenditures, for the justice court rents and leases, what's the 12,000 leasing here? What are we leasing?
Oh, this is, yes, that is I'm gonna get the name wrong.
Office
It's the
module
mobile,
That's what I was
the
wondering,
module,
'cause-
yeah,
right.
yeah, that is a module
I
office.
thought that seemed to be the right
because
price
that
for that
was-
module.
That is in there because we all know that the justice cost
Mhm.
is bursting at the seams over there. And we've seen on Mondays, so I've spoken to them, you know, about potentially, after the first of the year, doing some court dates here on Mondays, especially in the morning when it's very busy, but also being able to give some space to the justices, so because they're all squished in the justice court right now, to give them some temporary relief to be able to expand a little bit, so the office that they're in now can be used for staff, and they will then be in a module office that connects over there.
I thought
In
that
the back of the
Ernesto,
building?
No, I've left that up to them. They've met with Ernesto, they've met with Drew, they've walked it a gazillion times, we've met with the chief of police,
But in
looked-
the area of the building?
They're probably gonna be right in the front of the building. It'll be towards the front of the building is the area that everybody decided on.
Well, certainly I never liked modules, I hated them in the school district, but we had to do something right away, so.
Now, there's a purpose
I-
for them, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see the reasoning for that, but we all know up here that we need to look to some
I thought
long-term
Ernesto was
approach.
looking into this a year ago. Like, I have a plan from him a year ago of this modular that was supposed to
I
be
don't know
put
that
in
it
the
was,
back of the
I
justice.
don't know
court.
that it was a year ago. I think
Okay.
we had discussed a way to give them some relief,
Well, we
and-
hadn't discussed it, but I know Ernesto and Drew had come to me and said that
Well,
was
I haven't
something that was
discussed
under
it.
consideration.
It was a concern by the Justice Court, so we had looked at various ways and different expenses involved in it. We have met back and forth. There was, you know, whether the police department, their training area could be moved outside to the module, and then people from the court could maybe use some of that space. There was about using maybe over a different part of the thing, but logistically, in the Justice Court, it's separated, so it wasn't
No, I
appropriate for people to be walking back and forth to get to an office through the front door.
I understand it, and I
It took a
understand-
while for everybody
I
to come to
understand.
consensus on what
I
they
thought-
wanted to do.
And I
Yeah, and I
underst-
thought at first they weren't crazy about the idea, but then they realized that we have to do something for now.
There's been a lot of iterations to come to consensus to be able to do something,
Yeah,
yes.
it's been a while that the engineering was working on that with them. Anyway,
And just one last thing, for me for now, it's not a huge
Yeah.
thing, but just curious on.
But at least something's getting
the
done, as opposed
second
to nothing.
page of expenditures, accounting, personal services, overtime. The
20 grand.
actual in 2018 was 3,000 something. So far in 2019, we spent 2,400, but we're budgeting 20,000.
Yeah, what's up with that, Bill?
But what, so what
Sorry,
happens
Bill.
is, they, some employees, when they work overtime,
Mhm.
well, all employees have the option to either take it in pay or take it in time off. And when we're earning overtime, I don't know how much you're gonna take in pay versus time off, but a lot of the employees like to take their time off at some point later in the year, and that's what they do. So they may have comp hours that they've earned, but they're not actually get paid for it, because then they ask for another week off here or there. Similar to what happens in B&G and in highway, we don't really know, if you look at highway and B&G's overtime, a lot of times, the hours that they've accumulated never get paid out because they use it. So I have it in there in case they want it get paid out at any point and don't want the extra time, so that I have enough in the budget.
And Mother Nature is actually the ultimate decision maker of that.
Mhm.
I mean, on the storms and how much plowing has to be done and everything else, so that's a variable.
Do they accumulate it in time and here?
So I know I'm
Yes,
gonna have a
for
lot
every
more
hour they get an hour and a
questions.
half of time off.
John, you weren't in the room, I was asking, we can put this on for next time too? We can-
Yeah, I mean, if not next time,
Well, we
definitely
have
other
until
times.
the
We have-
22nd, I
the board
think.
has until the 20th to amend it.
Well, we
can
certainly
support
can
it
have just a
now.
separate budget
Yeah.
work session and
Right.
not make it part of a global
And-
thing.
and I
There-
think
There's a
that's
couple
right.
things in here I looked at that I'd
Still
like
wanna
to tweak a
look
little
into?
bit,
Mhm.
you know.
Do you wanna present any of them now?
No, I was looking at the seed plan program, I realized we cut 1,000 off that, I mean, little things like that environmentally, that we, and I'm, right now, I'm looking at revenues to see where, I'd like to come in with a complete plan to show you how to pay for it first, so
Okay.
not upsetting the
I
apple.
mean, I think we'll also take those to the board to hear the.
I know there's
public
20,000 I
hearing
get to
on
play with
six.
over in the
Those
highway, I
public
know that.
testimony comments, you guys also might take and consider for
But
any
I-
changes.
No,
I think, Tim, I think, Jim, just to the point that, you know, as I said, this is my preliminary budget.
Right.
You guys are obviously gonna work together to,
Right.
you know,
Right.
you have different issues of concern that you would like to address. So I don't know, that, you know, that you wanna communicate it to the other board members, what you're looking to do, because to present the budget back to me in isolation from each other is not
no, no,
very
no, no, no,
helpful.
no, no. I think it
So
should
you
be done-
guys are
I
gonna
think it
have
should
to
be done
work
right here.
together
I
to
think
see
it
what
should
your
be done right here.
adjustments
Right,
need to
Right.
be.
We should do it right
Yeah,
here.
and I think it should be on for next
For
week.
everyone to hear.
What's that?
I agree with Catherine. I think that it should be on for next week, because I think that we should have our proposed changes to the budget that are accessible to the public for the public hearing, that they can
Then I
comment
will
on.
put, I'll put mine in writing, and somebody can present this, because I won't be here next week, so.
Yeah, okay.
Well, one of us can
Okay,
present it on your
and
behalf.
mine is not a big deal, I understand where some has to go, but, all right.
Does everybody agree that it should be on for work session again next week? That is
It's
going to
fine.
be here?
It's- Yeah,
Okay, great.
And that's what I have for
Mine?
now.
next. Everybody else, Tim?
All right, mine's relatively easy, because it's not gonna cost us any more money, which is nice. I appreciate that you put in for another code officer, and I think you put, money in for a vehicle.
I have 3 vehicles for code because I think one of their vehicles, well, first of all, for the additional code officer, I know Jody was talking about the 2 people riding in one car. That was, one of the cars had been in an accident. They were offered another car, but they felt they were more effective riding together, to go to the possible overcrowded houses and check the rentals. That was a decision by the department to do. Believe they also have another car that has about 200,000 miles on it. So there actually are 3 cars slotted
Okay.
for code enforcement.
Perfect.
Because the cars they have are really in quite a lot, they're costing us more than they are to run.
What they do is when they are doing, they call it their overcrowded house task force. And they
Yeah.
put 2 of them in the car together, so it's not necessarily that they don't have the cars, that's not why they're doubling up. They're doubling up because if they're going to, for an example, if they go into a, house that speaks Spanish, they take the one Spanish-speaking code enforcement officer along with Nicole, and that's the task force, and they'll go out and do that. So
Right,
they
that's 2
they
days a
double up,
week.
they double up when they do that.
That's
Mhm.
2
Which
days a
makes
week.
sense.
It seems like for safety though, sometimes they need to be 2. I know
Yeah, well, going
somewhere
into
I
an
said
Yeah,
that.
maybe
overcrowded
that.
house is a
That
perfect
was
example.
a safety issue.
Mhm.
I
It should
didn't
be.
want one person going alone and
Right.
2 of them went together.
This is a
Agreed.
decision that was made, you know, they were offered another car if they wanted it, right now, and they
Really?
felt that, yep, and they felt that they were being effective in the way they were running their department, so, but moving forward, they need the additional vehicles, especially, you know, we're adding one more person also, so.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we'll have, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so what I'm
Seems
proposing
five
is we
and a
go
half.
to capital improvements. Which I'm trying to find here. It is on page 13. In the capital improvements, general government capital projects reserve, we had $235. What I'm presenting is removing $135,000 out of that to pay for,
Where are you at? I'm sorry, Tim.
it's page 13.
Okay,
In this book.
Oh, okay.
it's all right, I got it. General capital improvements,
for-
235,000.
Yeah, it's 235,000.
Tentative, but.
And I'm looking to take 135,000 out of that, put it into hiring one more code enforcement officer, a part-time clerk for code enforcement, because they were overwhelmed in there with the cases they have, and one clerk to do it. And also a part-time position for a paralegal. So we will be able to present more to the Supreme Court, more cases to the Supreme Court, which we need to do. And this is without changing the overall amount of the budget. It's just
But
rearranging.
it's
yes,
taking money from
robbing
capital
from Peter to
projects
pay Paul.
that have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll go over the capital projects that we have
Okay.
slotted so far.
My concern is with capital projects, we're talking about maybe playgrounds and stuff like that. I think the community has spoken very strongly that they wanna see something more done than we're doing, and I agree with that. On the overcrowded housing situation, the illegal rentals, and work in conjunction, obviously, with the school district to make this better for everybody in town, and hopefully maybe reduce some of the taxes just by maybe either losing some enrollment of people that are, don't legally live in the town, but are going to the school district, and cracking down on the landlords with the increased fines that I completely support. I think we can make this work. And going through your budget, Laura, I think it's a fair budget. When I was looking for money to do this, that was the one thing I thought I had to weigh options. And, you know, I'm not exactly sure what your ideas were for the capital improvements, but I think this is an utmost urgency and importance to address, and that was the best way I could find how to address it in the budget.
I think, and I agree, but I see a tentative budget has 235, but the preliminary budget has 99, but.
That's my,
That's the
that's my
change.
change. This is my
Right,
actual.
and you would think, and look, I realize it's a shell game sometimes when you do these things,
Right.
it's anticipatory. You would think by having an extra code enforcement to address at least the immediate issues, if not long-term issues, that would generate income as well. That-
A code
that may-
enforcement
that may
doesn't
cover
generate,
itself.
code enforcement doesn't pay for itself, it doesn't generate income.
It
With the
won't.
new fines, it will.
Historically, if you check with towns, it's not a revenue generator.
That's not what I'm hearing.
Well, I'm a little surprised about the paralegal. I think I'll talk to the town attorney's office and see what they
State
think.
revenues.
I just wanna bring up one point, I can go through the capital projects that were anticipated. Engineering comes, same as we had done with the water district, engineering comes, each year, they have a list of capital projects, that have been, requested in, 2010, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I think that one of the things we've notoriously done as a town, has not maintained our infrastructure, which ends up costing us more in the long run. Some of the projects that has been prioritized by our engineering department, one is the HVAC upgrades that are here. One of the other projects was the municipal garage. We do not have a fire alarm system there that is urgent, that we put that in there. And then there are obviously other things in here that are being requested. But that being said, while it would be nice to improve those capital projects, I urge all of you to consider what the chief has just said to us. This is an unfunded mandate that is not in the budget. There's going to be a $350,000 expense that we are going to have to absorb come March of this year, as well as potential overtime. So I'm a little leery to take everything out of the capital project when the capital projects may have to be used to meet our state mandated unfunded mandates. That being said, I think that if we could work together, I did speak to, I know that you had mentioned at the last meeting about a part-time paralegal. I have spoken to Bob Kozakevich. There is a paralegal in the town attorney's office now who has been relieved of quite a bit of duties because of reorganizing of things. I believe that paralegal could be assigned part-time to alleviate that position and still cover what we need to get done. The other, just a thought, I know that they are getting one more code enforcement officer. I think that according to the department, their weak link really is, at this point, the part-time clerk, to be able to carry things through. So I would urge if there was some cutting when you're discussing this, that you do consider the part-time clerk. I think if you speak to the department head there, or speak to code enforcement, I think that you may get some feedback from them
I've spoken to all them already.
pertaining to that. So I just want you to be mindful that, I didn't have it when I made my preliminary budget, but you guys need to take a look at covering that $350,000 in any suggestion you guys are making. And I don't think we can, kind of put our head in the sand at this point and say it's just going to appear.
That's just for the software you're talking about. There's gonna be more fees more monies involved in that
Correct.
than just the software.
Correct, so,
Yeah, I think
I
that.
don't know if there's a way that we can, I think that maybe we can talk to the department personnel, if there's a way that we could work more efficiently here. I know that Jody, you have been in code enforcement meetings, is there a way that we
There's
can?
two of them, yes.
We can assign some of this code work, to the police department to absorb?
Well, that was my
and that
recommendation
it-
at the last two code enforcement meetings, is to get the sergeants and the lieutenants on the IPS system so they can communicate electronically with code enforcement when there are houses that need to be surveilled in the off hours. And I know that IT was over there suiting up the police department with the IPS system yesterday. And that was as a result of my 2 meetings that I've sat in code enforcement.
So I think that's great.
Yes.
And so maybe you and Tim and Catherine and Jim can have a conversation and about the additional, this 135,000, and see if, I would urge you to take a close look at that and see if that could be reduced, as I said, in light of this other expense that we might be having.
Okay.
And then also with personnel changes in building and planning, so we gotta put all that together
Mhm.
also.
Fair enough.
Gotta weigh it all
Yeah,
and
Fair enough.
Yep.
prioritize.
Okay.
With the ambulance, Jody and I met with the president of the ambulance the other day.
And I'm
And-
just sorry to interrupt, but I met with him too.
Right, yeah, I think he went to you right after us. He has concerns with the budget. His first concern was that he submitted the budget, but was never called in to discuss the budget. And apparently, you made changes to what he submitted without conferring with them.
I'm
They
gonna,
felt they should be
I'm
part
going
of the
to say
process.
that this has been ongoing. They submit their budget at the same time every year, and then they are well aware of the budget season, but, each and every year, it seems that after the preliminary budget goes in, they then come back and ask for this at that time, instead of coming to meet with us beforehand. So, I did speak to them about that, so we'll see what happens next year, but we did that, they did the same
I
thing
would-
the prior
they
year,
told me-
and we spoke with them. Bill, would you tell the process, the budget?
I asked that specific question, and they told me that they have the emails from August 1st of 2019 that they sent it over to you and to the chief financial officer. So that was before the budget was put out.
Bill, do you wanna, how do we do the budgets?
Well, what happens is they submit their budget and the total amount. So we keep that fund, it's a separate fund to the 2.2 or 4% that we have for the year tax cap. What we wind up doing is then reducing what we can in their lines to keep within that. And we usually reduce their contract, because they're asking for 10% increase when we increased everything else 2% or less.
Understood.
So it's the same process, and I just for clarification, need to distinguish between the two. We have an ambulance district, which is the total budget, which is our ambulance district. We buy the vehicles, we repair the vehicles, we do the fuel, we do professional services, rents, leases, telephones, all of that stuff. The Riverhead Ambulance Corps is a contracted entity
know that.
with the town by contract. So we have a contract with them that is, is a separate and they give us what they would like to contract for, and then that's what we do it, because I know a lot of times there's a lot of confusion that, there's billing money that should go to the ambulance.
Oh, there
and-
is. There definitely is.
But there's a separate, it's separate and apart, and that's a separate and apart contract, and they
Right,
do
nice
get,
and broad.
they do get paid in their contract. They are paid all of the agreements that they were signed for in the contract for billing, which they signed and they agreed to. So, it's kind of, sometimes they come back and reconfigure that and try and take the billing contract and morph it into
That has nothing to do with them.
the ambulance contract. And it becomes very confusing, and we've
That
met with
billing is-
them,
that
I'm
billing's
gonna
for the
say
town,
at
it's
least
not-
5 or 6 times
Started
to make sure that the billing and the way the billing is accounted for is separate and apart from the ambulance. And they want to continuously push the two of those together,
It's
and
under
that
con-
is
it's
not the
under
way the
contract.
contracts are set up.
Well, I negotiate, that's under contract.
Right, they get an
And
extra,
that billing, that we would support the equipment to do it, we would give them the space to do it, and everything else, the town would bear that burden, which we did. Then the revenue starts to come in, that there would be a
Plus they get
percentage of that
plus-
set aside for capital improvements for them.
Plus, they get an additional stipend that goes to their,
Right.
to
But
them
it's not their money,
for the
it's
building
town
as
money.
part of
It's
the,
to stabilize the tax base.
and then they get an additional $50,000, I believe, through the billing for their staffing.
Right.
That wasn't anticipated or agreed upon in the beginning. So, you know,
And to
there's.
get them to agree with it was like pulling teeth.
None of this has anything to do with what I'm talking about, so I'd like to get back
Yeah,
on
let's
track,
move
please.
on, I don't know that this is worth
So what
delaying
is-
this
What
long.
the situation is,
Well, it is.
what I tried
History is
to
very important.
explain is they wish they would be part of the process, and I personally think they should be part of the process when you go over their budget and you start taking things out, because they don't disagree that maybe you have to take some things out, but maybe they disagree where you're taking it from. And here's the example.
Okay.
We know that we've had community, requests for EMT ambulance coverage in the eastern sector of the town, Jamesport, particularly from August through November. And with the traffic situation out there, and when an aided case comes in, and the call is responding from Osborne Avenue, where their headquarters is, to out on Washington Avenue in Jamesport, with the traffic situation as it is, it's difficult for them to get there in a timely, in a timely period. So what they're requesting is that they can staff, during the day tour anyway, at least for a start, that they could staff somebody out there to be on call with a rig, and this way their response to the eastern part of our township can have adequate ambulance service. And they propose that that would cost approximately $30,000 to do. Now, what he presented to us was that he's got some cuts where he felt that extra money was being put into some accounts that they didn't need, and he's able to justify, he's able to come up with at least $30,000 that can be rearranged in the budget as it's been done now.
But our budget or their contracted budget? Are they just asking for an increase in their contract? Or they're trying to, they're trying, they don't, the only budget item line on here is ambulance, where is it here? It's ambulance professional services, RVAC Inc. That's their number.
These are the
So-
budget
What
lines.
they
I use-
presented
these
to
are the
me
budget lines.
is the
Oh,
Riverhead
it.
Town 2020 Supervisors
highlighted.
Ambulance budget.
Right, so this is
So that's
the
what I'm
ambulance
saying, that's what I'm
district.
saying, so this
They're
is,
asking for an increase in their contract for 30,000 in order to
that's what I'm
cover the
asking,
east end.
that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
So they're asking for an
Yes.
additional 30,000 in the 44540 line.
Yes, and they're
Okay,
looking to
so-
take out money from the ambulance district, what's been budgeted for, and transfer it over to increase their contract amount to cover the east
So-
end.
Thank you. Correct.
So they want, so you're requesting to increase this line by 30,000, their
contractual
contract
line.
line,
Correct.
okay.
And remove it from here,
From where?
from different accounts that
Which,
they have.
what do you look?
They
that's-
have ambulance repair and maintenance for vehicles, they have $38,000 in there.
What was the actual for this year? Bill?
8,000. 8,000 to date.
Oh, boy.
I just wanna make sure the numbers are correct.
Repairs and maintenance vehicles or repairs and maintenance buildings?
Repairs and maintenance vehicles.
Vehicles was 12,000, buildings was 2. I know we have a budget of 38 and we spent 12. We had a budget of 15 in buildings, we spent 2.
Okay, but they are also saying that they got new vehicles now, so the repairs and maintenance on those vehicles is probably going to reduce down, and that's what it was, actually, 8,000 is what they think it will be reduced down to for repairs and maintenance of the brand-new vehicles that we just purchased for that. So that's why they think that there's money in that budget, and they're not asking for a lot, they're
They're asking for about $32,000 to be put back into the operating budget.
Okay. So when you guys do your budget, just correct the line items that you'd like to get and propose that.
Right, and then they're also saying that the administrative charges are up 5.3% from last year. So the administrative charges went from 144,800 to 152,300, which is a 5.3% increase in administrative charges. And they were questioning that.
Okay, I can show them the detail of what that is.
Okay.
Ambulance.
Well, there certainly is more hands-on now than with the billing. It
And then they're also saying that the income continuously shows year after year that their revenue is $80,000 a year, when it's actually, in 2018, their revenue was $146,508, and in 2019 to date, it's $134,978, and that's based on them doing the billing.
That billing, well, that, you can't count that.
Yeah.
And they're also saying that they're short as far as paramedics are concerned because the paramedics are being asked to pay $10,000 for,
That's new regulations that are
It
going through
is.
the training that they presented to us. It's not in effect yet, but it is something that we are gonna have to take a look at and account for.
right, because they're saying, they're concerned that they're not gonna have enough paramedics to cover
Right,
the,
yep.
the advanced treatment that's needed. So,
But I also just wanna point out something with the billing. You know, part of the billing was to be able to, you know, where they're housed right now has been, a point of concern for them, that they can't house all the ambulance within the barns, and that the structure needs to be improved. You know, and I think when the town did take on the billing, part of that was to be able to start putting money in a reserve fund to be able to improve their
Exactly right.
their location. And that actually has been occurring. I mean, we have built up a fund balance in there. Tim, you and I had met, the hospital has been generous to be able, has approached us about doing a capital campaign with them. But that would still require the town as the district to be able to put in, you know, 1.5 to 2.5 million, we're not quite sure yet. But if we don't have our ability to put in, then it, you know, it leaves the project once again, just a point of discussion without any ability to advance it. So I'm a little concerned, when you're looking at your numbers, to make sure that we don't start draining into that, so that, you know, we can't move forward when it's ready to do that.
And I agree, there was just,
Understood.
Coming out of
if I
that
could just say
budget.
one thing, because,
Yes.
and I don't wanna beat a dead horse, but the whole idea behind the billing was to create a surplus. And we were gonna set 10% or 15, I forgot what the contract read, aside for capital improvements. But it was to show a revenue stream, so that 4 or 5 years, we can do the necessary monitoring stuff now, but we have to do a major rebuild of that. We can show a revenue stream, and we could bond against that district if we had to show the ability to pay down a bond. That was the whole thing behind it. It wasn't part of a yearly income stream for them. It's not for them. It's for the taxing district. And it was to stabilize the taxing district for taxpayers, and to create a reserve fund so that they can do all the necessary capital improvements. That's the whole reason behind medical billing.
One of the questions, Bill, for you, they were wondering why we're only earning 1,000 interest on the, money in the reserves. He was saying that Jack Hansen used to put the excess in short-term CDs.
We have all of our investments now, we pool our investments, so they're making, with the going rate, we bid it out once a month, all of our idle cash, and they get a percentage based on their balances, so they're getting the same interest rate that we are in all of our investments, and it gets allocated to them. So, based on their cash balance, that's where they get, or their idle funds cash balance, we keep enough in their operating account to pay their monthly bills, and then whatever is not needed for monthly bills, we put in investment. So I can give them where their money is and what the interest rate they're getting, if they're curious about what that is, but, if you look at our investment earnings, it's up in the last year and a half because the interest rates are up.
And Bill, just out of curiosity, I know I'd asked you this before, so we contract with them, how do they show us what their actual expenses are that they're paying from their contract? You know, because I know that they also have fund balance that they put money into at the end of each year that's left over
Which
from
is
their
what we have to talk
contract.
about today.
So
let's-
how do
Let
we,
me just explain the contract itself and the board's, authority over
That they
that
took out of their
contract
fund
and,
balance. Yeah, that's what I said.
the amount that's funded in that
for the
contract.
furniture.
So we started out when we
State
first had a
contract.
contract with them, and we gave them a certain dollar
They went
amount.
back to put
That
in their
dollar
fund
amount is
balance.
contractually what we give them every year. That rolls over to the next year, plus any increases that the board votes on, okay? So the increases that the board votes on, let's just go into the 2% tax cap era, has always been limited by the 2% or so based on the tax cap. So we increased the total fund by that 2%, and again, the lion's share winds up going to that contract, because we don't have a lot of increases, we don't have any salaries or anything like that in there. So the other increases are really based on what we need to spend the next year. One of the things that is going down is debt, because we have a system in place where we put money aside for their vehicles now, replacement over a 10-year period. And in the contract, it tells us what we're supposed to replace. So all of the excess funds above and beyond what's needed for repairs and maintenance of buildings and vehicles goes to the contract. Once the board, whether it winds up getting adopted or not, once the final budget goes forward, and we've cut their request down by $20,000 to stay within the cap, that becomes their new contract and the minimum for the next year, and we just keep rolling that forward. So, what we've done is, if you look at it, first of all, we've only budgeted $80,000 for these medical billings, because we're now getting enough history, but we haven't tied everything out to see what year was from 2018 versus 19, to consider what we're putting in next year. So what winds up happening is, Jim said, we're putting this stuff away in fund balance, so that in future years, down the road, we have enough money to maybe buy another building or whatever it may be. Whatever we bring in excess of that 80 winds up going into fund balance. We have 50,000 that we increased their spending in the RVA, in the Riverhead Volunteer Ambulance Corp contract in the first year, and we have 30,000 that's in the board's control to do as they feel fit. And I think we had the one repeater or whatever it was that we had to replace this year. It's the first time we actually had to use any of that money.
And then we also have to put the other they're requesting the repeater for Wading River, which I believe we left in the improvements here.
So,
So where is the other repeater for Wading River?
Well, if possibly for the improvements,
Where is that?
30,000.
30,000 improvements, ambulance improvements.
So that ambulance improvements, that 30,000 is for the Wading River repeater.
Well, we'll see how much we're waiting to see because we RFP'd out the cell phone, the towers again, to see what we get back from that, to see if it will be in a position, that would work for them.
Okay, cause that was one of the questions too, is what improvements were needed in that line that you budgeted $30,000 for, but now we can go back and tell them that you expected the Wading River repeater, that money to be used for that.
And this
Okay.
is the first year we've used that. Last year it just rolled into fund balance.
Okay.
because we didn't need any.
So the fund balance from the end of 2017 was 740,911. So in 2 years, the fund balance has doubled. Now it's 1,606,000. So what we're doing with the ambulance billing is working, but they're saying that, you know, they're doing all the paperwork for the billing, and they were not seeking an increase in pay for those services, but, you know, we really need to take into consideration the fact that the paramedics there's a shortage of them, and they're gonna need those services. They also said that 32,700 for the furniture that they bought back in 2017, that was taken out of their private corporation's fund balance to cover that furniture, and they're saying that furniture was purchased off of the state contract. So they were seeking reimbursement for that
You better research
32,700.
that before you throw
Well,
that
we're-
out.
Yeah,
They
that's-
said they submitted the paperwork for it
Just saying,
showing,
research it, Jody, I'm not gonna take a defense, and nor should you, just research it.
okay, so it wasn't taken off the state contract.
We don't know that, we don't know the contract that was taken off, but we requested that again
They
from
didn't
them, so
follow
we're waiting for
procurement
that.
policy, I
Once
can
we
tell you
get
that.
that, we'll be able to give you
Okay,
more.
great.
They submit to us the expenses for the billing, which comes off the top. One of them was the furniture expenses, but they still have to stay within the town procurement policy. Same as, you know, they went for some training, they went to, you know, Vegas and Florida at almost like $8,000
Well,
when it was
that's
being
not a
offered
fair
someplace
statement,
closer.
that's not a fair
So-
statement,
but-
because that was not considered until after the Vegas class, the class had already closed out, that you were asking them to consider, and we got a whole email on that.
I know we did.
So that's not
I
that's
just ask you,
disingenuous.
I just ask you to take a look at what the expenses associated with the billing department when we have a third-party biller.
Right, and I ask you to not be disingenuous
just to
about
go
what
back-
they
I
did
just
with their
wanna-
training.
I wanna go back a minute to something Tim brought up. I definitely think that we need that, extra station set up out in the Jamesport area.
Absolutely.
On those busy weekends.
It's
I mean,
only
if you
fair to the
remember
residents,
last
not
year, there was a day
especially
where the
visitors
McCase's house
Yeah.
burned, and there was an accident,
Correct.
and nobody would have been able to get
Right.
down that
Yeah.
road, so,
So, yeah.
I do think for that area, that's important on those really busy weekends.
Good.
So I think, like I said, just adjust the budget and then bring that back when you guys come to consensus on how you'd like to change it. We know it's about $32,000. I think you could probably figure that out from some of these lines. You know, like I said, the vehicle line, the improvement line, we'd like to keep, just, you know, to let you know, the intention for that is to be able to have greater service out in Wading River. The vehicle lines, as we know, many times during the year, we have a vehicle that becomes incapable of use, and that needs to be, replaced. So I would hate to see that line gutted, so that if we have to put a new vehicle in, that we would have the money and the ability to do that, because
we
I
weren't
think that's a
taking any out of
necessary
the vehicle
expense.
line.
No, and
guess
this is a
his
matter of
question-
public safety. So if it had to come out of, seeing as the fund balance has increased, has doubled in the last 2 years, if we had to take $30,000 and then budget for it next year in their contract to give them another $30,000 to fund that post,
Right.
then that's what we should be doing. So if we have to take $30,000 out of fund balance to give them that position for 2020, then I think that's what we should be doing, especially because they've, with the billing cycle, and we've only been budgeting for 80,000 in income, and they're taking in near 150,000 every year, that we could take 30,000 out of fund balance, and that's all they're asking, is to
And-
be able to provide service to the public.
And once again, I just, for you guys, for your own edification, that 30,000 is year after year after year, right?
Yeah.
So they, you know, and it takes them one more, so I would talk to the department when you're doing this, and realize that that is coming off the top of being able to upgrade the facility, or it adds time to that. So that's a decision for you guys, and have a conversation with them. You
you're
know, we
kinda-
know that, we know the bottom line number about what we need to be able to move the project forward. So, you know, it's just a matter of timing,
I
that's
think,
all.
well, you're kind of saying, you don't wanna deplete our you know, for replacing vehicles, and I think he was saying that we had new vehicles,
Yeah, it
and we
wasn't-
didn't think we.
Right, it
I
was
think
repair and
that's-
maintenance on them, because the vehicles are new.
Right, I
That
think
bill
that's
goes
where
way down.
that was where one of the differences is, so
Right,
we have to,
and there's-
these are all things we have to weigh and discuss
I think we
priorities
should
and
have
figure this out.
another budget meeting, not necessarily at a work session, but it's easier if we can all get together and work on this. Otherwise, we, one at a time, and it's piecemeal, and to me, it's kinda crazy, stuff can get lost.
Yeah,
So I
and I
would
think
rather have
we're-
just a budget meeting or budget workshop, where the
Like a
whole
separate
board can
meeting?
get together and do it.
You just guys let me know, and we can schedule.
I think that's a great idea, because I think we're all agreeing on a lot of the issues, so it's just a matter of getting Bill to actually do the budget change from the tentative budget to the actual budget.
Well, you guys would submit, I have my tentative budget, you would submit your budget, and then we would, you know, come to consensus on that, and then move forward. It just has to be done before the 20th of November.
Yes.
So I think this is a great start, so I look forward to, seeing what you guys put forward with us.
This is really how a budget should be done, as far as I'm concerned. It hasn't been done this way since I've been here. And not pointing fingers at you, it wasn't done with the prior
Right,
administration.
but we never had a balanced budget either, we were always operating at a deficit until 2019. So there was really no movement in the budget, and, you know, we did realize a lot of properties that were getting IDA benefits that have come off of those benefits, and we saw another $1.5 million in the budget in spending as far as offsetting taxes and things that we could do. So it's really, 2019 is the first year that we had a balanced budget since I've been on the board since 2010. So there really was not a movement, I mean, we were cutting positions. We weren't looking to where, you know, what we needed as far as infrastructure. And the computer software program that we've upgraded, we were doing it slowly in modules, like 15,000 here, 15,000 here, 30,000 one year, 30,000 the next year, and, you know, after 6 years, finally building it up to what we have today. And we started that with the, you know, trying to get off the mainframe.
I just wanna piggyback, I wanna agree with you, Tim, but by the way, that's on us. So it's good, we need to do our work as
Yep.
as
No,
part
because
of our job,
honestly,
and
in the past, when
what
it's,
we need to do.
when the budget has been passed by
Right.
default, it kinda leaves a bad taste in my mouth, because it's almost like, well, we didn't agree that the supervisor's budget was good, but we didn't do our part to
That's what I'm
kinda
saying.
step in and what don't you like about it? Well, present it, well, you know, work on it. And that's why I think having a meeting, just a budget,
Right.
Workshop,
I think
meeting
you and
would
I are
be
agreeing.
ideal.
We need to do our part too.
And if you need anybody to come in and present during the budget workshop, please just let us know, and we can make sure that
Okay.
there's somebody available
Good.
for presentation.
And we used to have them, right, Bill? It was like tearing eyeballs out, because when they were trying to get rid of the fire marshal, when they eliminated the fire marshal, and then we discussed it at the table, trying to find a position, and when you're trying to change the supervisor's budget, it's been very difficult over the years to get 3 votes to actually change the supervisor's budget. So it became a terrible exercise, especially because we were so tight on funding and operating at a deficit.
Well, if you're gonna be tearing eyeballs out, I'm bringing protection.
It shouldn't be, because all 5 of us have to work with this budget. The
Yes,
board
right.
has to work with it.
I agree,
So
and it's
it
much
should be
more
a
relaxed,
collaboration of.
much more relaxed now than it was.
I think that one of the
And this,
differences.
go ahead, go
I
ahead.
think one of the differences back then is, as you said, we were cutting positions, which ones do we cut to not pierce the cap and so
Right.
forth. Now we're at a point where we have a couple of dollars that we have to see which way the board all agrees on spending.
Exactly.
So, we're in a better
It's
place.
not my
and
calm
now-
demeanor
good
that's
thing.
actually doing all of this, and having transparency and openness and saying, let's have a discussion about this.
It was
Yes,
which
look how
position are we
calm
gonna
you
cut
are.
and which ones are we gonna keep?
Right,
That's
so
what it
now-
was.
So now we need
That
to
is-
discuss as we
Oh,
are,
Larry
you know,
says
we
it's
need
him.
more code enforcement or whatever.
All
Larry got
right, if
cut.
we're all okay, I'm adding something, for executive session. Could I have a first and second to go into executive session with, for matters surrounding the hiring of a temporary employee? And that's with Drew Dillingham and, Bill Rothar.
Motion.
Cause he got cut. Larry, hold up